Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to what I feel is a very special episode, or a very special video, about what I consider, for me at least, to be the original Extreme Let's Play. Or rather, the first time, or the first game that I, as someone who was only so old at the time, growing up and exposed to video games. This was a game that, one of the first games that I ever owned, and even then, I only ever owned it secondhand from my half-brothers, which eventually would then get semi-passed down to me. It was never really formal, but it was never really a formal hand-me-down, but one of the first consoles I ever owned was the Sega Master System. Now, for those of you who don't know, who live here in the United States, don't worry, the Master System was never really that popular, but it was a precursor to the Sega Genesis, which was a console that was more famous for its Sonic titles. Sega had a mascot predecessor to Sonic, and that was in the form of Alex Kidd. And Alex Kidd Miracle World was the first game that, that I'd ever been exposed to, I would think. Or at least it's my earliest. At least it's the game that I remember most earliest. Sure, over the years I would be exposed to more Mario titles, Sonic titles, and all the other characters. But this game was different, not just because it was the first one I've ever encountered, but it was because it was actually one of the most difficult ones, at least for the time being. I mean, imagine this. You're a kid born in the 80s, growing up in the 90s. The internet was not a thing yet. And you happen to have this game or know somebody who does, and you couldn't for the life of you beat this game. Not because the game looked difficult, but the controls were a bit slippery. I mean, imagine, I wouldn't say this game would be difficult like Super Meat Boy levels of difficult, where the level was explicitly trying to kill you. This game had instances where, the challenge was rather difficult. I mean, I know I'm talking in circles, but I don't really have any other way of explaining it. This was a game, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't beat this until I was about 16 or 17 years old. Now, maybe I was a bit younger, I don't know. I mean, I'm coming to find out sometimes that my sense of timing... See, when you experience something in your life, you think you were this age when it happened, when in reality, the rest of the world thinks, you were maybe this age when it happened. It's like a Tiger electronic handheld, I had no idea that those handhelds were continuously made until the electronic handhelds were only made until like the early 2000s, and I had always thought that they were just a thing that ended in like 95 or 96. So, my memories of this game when it came out, how old I was when I beat it, could be vastly different. Now, I'm not lying. Well, actually, you can see it for yourself. This is the Sega Ages port because, although I do have a Sega Master System Mark II, actually, it's actually up in our attic right now. Honestly, I don't know if it's in any good working condition. I mean, it's been up in the attic for like ever, right? And quite frankly, let's just say I'm a little bit out of shape to even consider going up into the attic. I mean, it's part of the... Okay, that's fine. It's part of the reason you know, we have things in a storage unit these days, but yeah, I had a Sega Master System once upon a time, and the thing is, I used to own the original Sega Master System, and as you can see in the upper right corner of the screen, the little representation of the console, it used to also, not only could you play cartridge games with it, but it also had games that came on a very small card, not unlike that of a PlayStation memory card, but much Sorry, I'm getting a bit of a frog in my throat here. I think I had a bottle of water here somewhere. Maybe this is it right here. Yeah, here we go. So, anyway, so I owned a Sega Master System. Played this game. I mean, this was the game that you come back to, like, the game that you always want to beat, but you could never seem to do it for the life of you. And yet, back in the early days, you know, when you're a kid, you have more than enough time to do things, you know. Playing a difficult video game until you beat it is just one of them. And yes, back then we didn't have any save functions, so any progress we made would always be lost upon turning off, you know, the console back in those days. It wasn't until after I beat the game and found information on it online that I realized that this game actually had a continue option, or that is rather the original cartridge version had a continue option, but it was very convoluted on how to pull it off. Basically, what it is that if you had more than, I think it was like 400 or 800 money in the game, if you were to press and hold a specific button and press another button like 8 times in rapid succession on game over, you would be given a continue option, which will basically pick you up right where you left off and give you 3 extra lives. But thing is, like I said, I never knew that existed, you know. I guess as my generation used to say, you know, I got good, spelled G-U-D. Another thing I have to point out, and, you know, maybe I can... Oh, it's just an X. Another thing I have to point out is the cartridge version that I owned actually... see, there's this end game item that you have to collect to proceed to the next level. For the longest time, I thought this white thing with a black square was a graphical glitch, you know, because games are back then games were notorious for that. Back then, if a game could not load in a specific image, it would default to whatever the data could read, right? Well, for the longest time, I thought this thing was a graphical glitch. No. As it turns out, and I didn't find out until watching some other show several years later, that it's actually a dish called onigiri. Basically, it's a rice ball. So I never knew rice balls existed. Now, when I eventually got a Sega Master System 2, they would replace that endgame item with a hamburger. So yeah, kind of a fun fact. Apart from that, the game was virtually the same, you know. Now, I was going to just play the replay of a saved... I was going to play just a saved replay of a game that I had already finished once upon a time. You know, and just watch the... Oh, hello. Sorry, the capture couldn't seem to... Wow, that is weird. The capture's doing something a little freaky here when transitioning here. I don't know if it's like anti-piracy or what the deal is. Alright. So anyway, I was going to watch a replay of a game I had already finished and just commentate over it, but for the sake of nostalgia, I think I'll just go ahead and play it. Now, just to be clear, this is not an extreme Let's Play, you know? I mean, if I get a game over or die, whatever, you know. I mean, I'm not going to get a game over, but I'm just saying. I mean, the game does have a manual, too. Actually, international display mode, fit, full screen. Oh, it always seemed kind of weird to me. Dot by dot, vintage, normal. Smoothing scan lines. I could do it with the scan lines to make it look more like a CRT television, but wallpaper type A. Wow, these wallpaper options don't do it justice. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and just, if it doesn't bother anybody else, I'm going to do this with a game border. Because here's the thing, if you notice on the bottom, on the display, see, that's not a random assortment of Genkin Pawn symbols. That's actually the order of symbols you need to throw in order to actually beat all the game's bosses at Genkin Pawn, or rock paper scissors, whichever you grew up with hearing. Yeah, funny thing about this game is that, you know, as difficult as it was to know just what you throw out there, the game, there never really was any real randomization to the rock paper scissors. You were never really truly playing rock paper scissors in the purest sense. As long as you know the correct hands to throw at the time you're supposed to throw them, you'll always win, right? Like, it was always a pattern. It wasn't randomized. But, you know, again, you have to remember this game came out before there was an internet, so you never knew that. So for all intents and purposes, yeah, rock paper scissors was indeed random back in the day. So yeah, all right. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the music on for me. I mean, you could probably still hear it on your end, but you know, I wonder if that's why I'm having audio issues of late. Oh no. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's just get this started, huh? Another reason I chose the international version is because, you know, the sounds are more in line with what I grew up with. I mean, I could have played an FM synthesized version, but so anyway, as other game reviewers will tell you about this game, Alex suffers from a one-hit KO. You know, there are no armors, there's nothing of that sort. The funny thing is, on the cartridge version, or the versions I used to play with, I never knew Alex had like a white stripe on his shirt, you know, near his sleeves, like it was a tracksuit. It was something that I think that was left out on the actual hardware. So, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I think it completes the look because, you know, you have to have white to go with the red and blue, you know. Oops. Now, you're probably wondering why I opened up that box that contained a ghost. The thing is, the thing is, the item inside the boxes, that too is not randomized. Basically, whatever's in one box, even if you don't open it then, it's just going to appear in another box. So, if you want to manipulate what's in the next box thereafter, you open the box. Also, with the exception of money bags that are already out in the open, you can only have up to 2 exposed money bags. So, it'd be in your best interest to collect what you open up. Otherwise, the others will disappear. Okay, this part. I mean, Alex's jumping is a bit... I don't know if it'd be accurate to say it's stiff or slippery or... I mean, it's something you'd have to experience for yourself, but... Okay, I'm not going to go for that. So, So, according to the story of the game, as according to the original manual that came with the game back in the day, Alex was basically just, you know, in the mountains training his, it's actually a martial arts style that he's sporting. Something called shellcore or something. Yeah, you wouldn't know it, but... Yeah, see, there's the endgame item. It's not an error, it's a rice ball. But yeah, the reason he can punch rocks and such, the game says that, you know, he was studying a martial arts style. Okay, by the motorcycle, one of the game's vehicles. Okay, and here is Stonehead. Now the original owner's manual calls him like Gozeka. I don't remember for the life of me what his name is. Again, you know, back when game makers made physical manuals for games, but yet nobody ever reads manuals anyway. You know, people just wanted to dive in. And yet, nowadays, you almost need a manual for some games, because you're not going to know things otherwise. Or sometimes, you know, you buy a modern game and it just comes with the game itself, you know, and you're like, oh, you need instructions? Here, download this here's this QR code, you know, assuming that everybody these days has a cell phone, which I wouldn't think they do. But, I don't know. I guess I'm a little dated that way. It's kind of funny, you know, the things I learned about in school, you know, in the days before the internet. Like, I mean, I graduated in 2005, top 10% of my class. Not bragging, but... Okay, there's an actual secret down here. You know, I graduated top 10% of my high school in 2005. Got, you know, all throughout high school earning every conceivable honor roll, and yet, you know, I graduate high school and, you know, there's now a plethora of information that's now out there thanks to the internet. See, the internet didn't really take off until 2005, and if I had to venture a guess as to why, it's probably because, there was a switch between, if I do this, I mean, not that I need the extra cash, but, so, anyway, graduated in 2005. The reason the internet didn't really take off until afterwards was because back then everybody was probably still sporting dial-up internet. And around that time, you know, people were converting from dial-up to, what was it, DSL or Ethernet? So, you know, no longer were people restricted to limiting themselves or their time online. People could just surf the web at their leisure without worrying about phone calls. Or missing phone calls. Nowadays, it's all cell phones, so there is no phone line anymore. In fact, incidentally, that's gone. Incidentally, I came to the discovery that, you know, we actually lost our phone line about 9 months ago. Not because I wasn't paying the bill, but because, well, it was just outdated technology. I mean, it would have been nice if somebody had told me prior so that I wouldn't freak out later. But, you know, that's me, you know, finding out at the last minute. There's probably a whole plethora of things that you all know out there that I don't. I mean, contrary to popular belief, you know, not everybody's plugged into the system. I mean, we older millennials, I mean, we're not as plugged into the network as you might think we are. You know, we still come home, we still flick on the television for news, among other things. I don't come home and just watch YouTube all day. I mean, hell, we even have a Netflix subscription that I myself haven't really been using all that often, even though I'm the one paying for it. I probably should, you know, so that at least I can feel like I'm getting something out of it, but no. Rest of my family seems to enjoy it, so. And no, I'm not going to share my password with you guys. I mean, it's bad enough I get erroneous text messages from people I've never heard of saying, "Oh, your account has been suspended." Well, I'm sorry to tell you, genius, but I don't have an account with you guys, and I know that for a fact because I don't do much. One of these days I'm just gonna say checkmate, and that'll just be the end of the argument. Go ahead and just, since I can afford it, I'll just buy everything we got here. This version of the game, the Sega Ages version, actually has rankings. For the main game, the goal is to actually end the game with as much money as possible, so there's a challenge of, you know, of not spending as much and earning a lot. I'm actually ranked 22, believe it or not. Still, to this day, I'm ranked 22, so however long ago this game came out, you know, that's what it is. Now, I say this version because, surprise, in 2021, they actually made a DX version of this game. A company called Merge Software basically took this game and gave it updated visuals, among other things. I mean, the story has changed. Narratively speaking, the story has changed a little bit. Personally, I would have rather Merge Software actually took the time to, like, correct their grammatical mistakes. Because, you know, reading some of them now, you could tell, like, English may or may not necessarily have been their first choice. I don't know. I mean, the product page for the DX version, I mean, the description of the software doesn't look like it's been proofread, so. I mean, it's not a bad game, you know, I mean, you can otherwise ignore the dialogue, but. Okay, so I actually have to use the helicopter here. The game calls that helicopter a petty copter. Basically, it's a helicopter that's bipedal, and you basically use your legs to rotate the blades. I mean, if only we were physically fit to operate something like that these days, but we're not. I'm certainly not. I'm gonna go ahead and use this. So that's what the ring does. You can't actually use the ring underwater, but everywhere else, I mean, it's fair game. Now, the funny thing about using the ring here is that the hitbox, as gamers would say, is actually... Oh, can I... Oh, I must have took out too many blocks. I can't... Or no, actually, I can still get up there. I just gotta go this way. And I got another ring. Okay, so that sphere item I just picked up, there's only 2 in the entire game, and you only need 1. It's basically called a, well, the game manual used to call it a miracle ball, which is actually just something that'll, oh, first death. Basically, it'll help you read the minds of the opponents you face when playing Gen-Ken Pon, but again, you don't really need it, considering that the order is not randomized for each playthrough, so yeah. As long as you know what's what, you don't really need to... Okay, expose the ghost. Oh, crap. And this guy's just gonna follow me. Jeez. Alright. I guess that's that, then. I'll just have to do without some of those items, then. Yeah, so if the hand symbols up above are anything to go by, I have to throw scissors and then paper. You know, I can't remember for the life of me, but I think sometimes even if you don't grab what you think is a vital item, the game will assume you already grabbed it. So I mean, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that was the case in the original release, but okay. Well, again, I can afford it, so I'll buy everything just to ensure that I got it. You might say this is a bit of a trap to give you a motorcycle here because, well, if you don't make the jumps, you're not doomed, but okay, I think that was... Okay. Go ahead and use the A ball here. Yeah, so the A ball summons like 8 copies of you to take care of something. And spoiler alert, that's the only time we're ever going to use that thing. There is another item in the game that's basically the B ball. Oh, there goes the boat. And that's the only time we'll see the boat. So, there's also another item in the game, like, that provides you with a barrier, the B-ball. But, the thing is, you can go an entire playthrough and not even use it. In fact, the only thing it does is, I suppose, protect you from enemy attacks, I guess. But that's exactly what that's exactly what this thing does here. So, yeah. I'll get it. I'll get the B-ball, but I'm not going to use it. Incidentally, I'm not entirely... You know, I was pretty young at the time, so it's very possible that my half-brothers were actually able to beat this game in its entirety, but, you know, my memory of them playing this, they only really got as far as just after the first castle, so... Because, again, you know, rock, paper, scissors, and all that. I don't need that. There we go. Okay, now I gotta crash the vehicle. And it's Paperhead, the first henchman of the king. Yeah, so, stating the obvious here, oh, whoops, it's rock and scissors. Stating the obvious, Jake and the Great's minions are shaped like the actual hand symbols. I didn't want to bring it up earlier because, you know, obvious is obvious, but... So here's the Redaxian Castle. There's a funny thing about this castle. This castle actually does have, wait, how many lives do I have? 8? Yeah, I don't need the extra life. Oops. Oh well. Okay, so... Oh, that's right, I still have this thing on. For whatever reason, I thought I lost this ability. I mean, this song is pretty tame by comparison to other songs these days, but it kind of freaked me out when I was a young kid, so not as way less intimidating now, but... And there's Alex's brother, Egil or whatever his name is. Okay, so he basically tells you about the Moonlight Stone, which you actually need to get the game's main MacGuffin, the crown, I guess. Hold on a sec. Capture is not responding as well as I hoped. I don't know if I can... properties? Okay, USB video, custom, resolution, FPS. I gotta admit, I don't know much about this kind of stuff here. FPS, match output FPS. I don't know if that'll fix the problem I'm having here. Buffering, auto detect. Okay, so okay, I don't know if that fixed any of the problems we're having visually. I gotta admit, the capture's never really done that for me so far. I don't know if it's just overuse of the capture card I have. Honestly, I only paid like $40 for it, so, you know, could be one of those things where you buy cheap, you get cheap quality, so... Okay, so this room right here is pretty notorious for a reason that may or may not occur this playthrough, but along the floor, even if you don't touch those fires, sometimes you can jump, fall ever so slightly through the floor, and you'll just inexplicably lose a life. That was the way it was even in the original, so I don't know if it has to do with, you know, sprites overlapping or information, but, you know, again, it's... Funny thing is, I can never seem to replicate it when I want to. Also, fun fact, you know how Alex, how normally when you punch things, Alex's fist is usually what damages things? Yeah, when you're wearing the bracelet, actually, or ring, whatever, the hitbox is no longer on Alex's fist. It's actually solely the projectile that comes out of the fist. So you could be right next to a switch block or whatever, and never actually hit it, despite being in close range. Okay, there we go. Alright, 1, 2, 3... Okay, so paper twice. Yeah, so, like I said, imagine being a kid in the early 80s, 90s, playing this game before there was an internet, or worse yet, if this was one of those games that the internet decided to overlook, you know, you'd never know how to beat this. Otherwise, the only way you'd be able to beat it is just pure random luck then. And this is the part that freaked me out when I was much younger. How the enemies' heads just inexplicably pop off. But no, they go down easily. Just smash the head 3 times and they're done. Okay. So we'll just buy the life here. Again, we don't need those. We don't need those anymore. And yeah, that's the level. Surprise. Okay, so it's rock twice here, so. Okay. You know, funny thing is, of the 3 henchmen, I think the second henchman here is actually the hardest to beat, you know, in combat, so if anything, he should have been the first, but, I don't know, biased, I guess. And there we go. Okay, so this is one of the only levels in the game that you actually have to have the vehicle in order to technically beat it. I mean, you could survive, you know, crashing your vehicle, but then you'd pretty much be stuck, because no amount of platforming is going to get you through this. So those green vines that come out, yeah, those will hurt you. So yeah, they're not something you can jump on. Okay. And there we go. We're at the Nibbana Kingdom, I guess. And here's the castle. Here's its king. Now, funny thing is, this scene here actually plays out differently depending on whether or not you've actually attained that letter from the other castle. You know how I fell down into the room where the letter was, but the letter wasn't there yet? Yeah, if you don't save your brother, the letter doesn't appear. And if you don't grab the letter before beating that level and you come here, the king will basically just tell you to shove off and sick a ghost after you. So you won't even get this item, which is supposed to help you actually figure out how to get the crown at the very end. But of course, you know, this pattern here never changes between playthroughs, so you can actually never obtain the letter or this stone slab for that matter, and you'll just be able to get the crown without the king's help. So, you know, so if you were looking to speedrun the game, you know, that's helpful to know. Okay, buy things you like. Again, don't need to buy this is the last shop in the game, by the way. Don't need to buy everything, but I'll do it anyway. So, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think any of my brothers actually got this far. You know, it's kind of weird, you know, between me and my stepbrother, I mean, my stepbrother got a Game Boy and I got a Game Gear. Power's flickering around here. There was a thunderstorm supposedly rolling through, so hopefully the recording holds. I can kind of hear thunder outside. Oh. Uh-oh. Hello?